Okay, so good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Public Library's Author of the Month for the month of March. And today we have with us, I love saying her first name, so I'm going to say it, Mrs. Lerisa Simon. I find it's nice and unusual. It rolls off the tongue very nicely.
Thank you.
So for the month of March, we're highlighting Mrs. Simon. Mrs. Simon is the author of three books. Um, Gift of God. I have that one on. I think everybody loved that one, so we couldn't get them back for today.
Oh, okay.
I,
Okay, I
I
got
have.
you.
I went on Amazon and I bought the Kindle version.
Oh, okay.
And she also has a lemon tree and a daily devotional. You say 40-day devotional,
Right.
right? And so I'm hoping that we can just discuss a bit from all three, and it's a tear jerking some reading there. I think it'll be excellent for book club. I must
Oh,
say,
okay. Thank
right?
you.
So it's a good recommendation for something like that. If anybody has any questions, they are always invited to ask their questions, and then we try as much as we can to answer them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Mrs. Simon, welcome to the Public Library's Author of the Month series, and we'd like you to share a bit about yourself with the audience, the online
Well,
audience.
okay. Thank you so much, Mrs. Christian. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you to the National Public Library also for this opportunity to share with your audience. Good morning to you and good morning to everybody who is plugged in, who is online, who is with us. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to give a listen. It's an honor to be here and it's an honor to share with you. My name is Takessa, and I really have to I have to give you props, Mrs. Christian, because not everybody not everybody is able to tackle it. Not everybody is
Oh
brave
dear.
enough to not everybody is brave enough to try. So props to you, ma'am. Props to you. Takessa Larissa.
Props to your parents for coming up with that.
I'm saying, I'm saying, yeah, that is my father. That he I guess takes the cake for that.
Uh,
Right. So that's my name. I am Antiguan by birth. Grew up here on the island of Antigua. We lived in a couple of places. We kind of moved around quite a bit in my early childhood. Um, I am married to Father Reed Simon. We share a son. His birth story and the story of faith that surrounds that is kind of encapsulated in Gift of God, right? Um, we lived in St. Kitts for a few years and then came back to Antigua. I have a teaching background and I sort of morphed out of that life into writing. I do voice work as well, but writing is my passion and my love, and I have devoted myself to that. I feel, well, more a calling and a passion. So where those two have intersected, that is my sweet spot. So that is where I am right now. So that's me in a nutshell.
that's awesome.
Yes.
Did you always want to write, or did circumstances just birth that process?
Pretty much, I've pretty much always been a writer. I remember telling the story at an event that I was invited to speak at, where I used to keep journals. I didn't know they were journals; they were just exercise books when I was little, and just write, what I was feeling, about my life, about things that happened. And the funny thing is, while I've always loved writing,
Is I'm gonna
I
say
never really thought of myself necessarily as a writer. When you're young, you're
yes.
not really seeing where that's going to go. There are two things that happened actually that sort of made me think a little bit deeper about it. The first was one day my mom was, doing her cleaning and stuff, and she came across one of my journals. And when I came home from school, she said, I found your book. And without having to say anything, I knew exactly what she was talking about. And I started freaking out because I didn't remember if I had written anything unflattering about her. So I started, freaking out about that. And like, because she didn't say anything else other than I found your book, and she just kind of let that hang in the air for a while, let the suspense build up. And so I just waited. I didn't say anything, not wanting to put my foot in anything else. And she said, I read one of your stories and it's really good. And one of these days I'm going to publish it. And, my mom, I guess, because of how she is, we never had that kind of conversation. And so that was the first inkling I had that, maybe there was something else going on here. I'd never really thought about that. The second event, life event, so to speak, that sort of opened my eyes to that was, I remember we were in maybe third or fourth form, and we had an English teacher who was extremely difficult, to say the least, extremely difficult to please. And I remember she gave us a story to write. I'd never forget the topic. It was What Makes Me Happy. And I had taken it home, for homework, and I actually forgot about it. And I think it was something about 9 o'clock the night. I was like, oh boy, I have this homework for tomorrow. So I scribbled an essay, literally scribbled an essay together and handed it in. And the next day she saw me on the corridor and she said, I read your essay. And she said, I've never read an essay quite like that. And she said to me, she sent it off to her, because she was American. And she sent it off to a counterpart, a teacher, a colleague of hers in the States. And she said that lady, when she read it, she said she was going to put it up in her classroom. And I was like, what? this homework that I scribbled last night, but she gave me a perfect score. And I kept that for years and years. I held on to that. Not really understanding at the time, not really putting, anything together, but just sensing, I guess, somewhere inside that this was kind of important. And, I just kind of filed it away for later on. But it wasn't until years and years later, when I started really developing, and after the situation with my son, came about, and I realized, we're not alone in the experiences that we have, in how we hurt, in the difficulties we have in trying to find our way in this life of faith, in trying to, reconcile, who God says he is and what is happening with us, and we're following him, but we're not seeing quite how this is, supposed to be happening, what's going on. And I realized, we're not alone. And so my situation and my experiences at that point, I guess, kind of merged with the talent that he gave me. And I figured, maybe what he's been asking me to do is to share through the talent that he has given me, what my experiences are, let people know, you're not by yourself, and how we sort of are navigating our way through difficult things, in the hopes that it can help somebody else as well. Sure. So
I found that you really placed yourself out there in the lemon tree.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm trying to discuss the books in order, but
no, that's fine. As the Spirit leads you.
Right. But have you gotten much response from individuals who have read this one?
Quite
Do you get feedback? Sorry.
Yes, I do. The feedback from Gift of God was a little different from the feedback for Lemon Tree. With the feedback for Lemon Tree, as you can imagine, just as you said, I did put myself out there. And it's so interesting because those are the exact words that a very dear friend of mine in the States, she said to me, I thought you gave so much of yourself with Gift of God, but you really put yourself out there with the Lemon Tree, And I said that in itself was a hurdle that needed to be overcome, because, the society that we live in, and the sort of, what certain topics are acceptable to talk about, and certain things are taboo, and we tend to be by nature, by culture, very private and that sort of thing. But what has, I think, really lifted me is the type of commentary you would get from the Lemon Tree was different from Gift of God. With Gift of God, I got a lot of, congratulations, I'm so glad you did this, thank you, it's very helpful. the type of commentary for the lemon tree in a lot of ways was deeper, and
Yes.
it was more, heartfelt and more personal. And so this was not the type of commentary where people would see me on the street and we talk about it. What I got from the lemon tree in terms of feedback was different from Gift of God, in the sense that it was private messages, and it was, a private phone call, and it was, just very private. Thank you for doing this, because I thought I was by myself in what I'm going through. And so the conversations surrounding this were deeper, people admitting things, people that you see all the time, and you just, figure, everybody's happy, life is good. You'd be surprised, and not necessarily related to the topic, which is miscarriage. But you'd find, I had one person who said to me, my marriage fell apart a few months before I read this. And even though you were talking about your experience with miscarriage, what I was reading in terms of how, you related to God and what you sensed going through it, I literally felt like I was reading my own story about my marriage falling apart, on these pages. And so what I got from some people too is, this was hard to read, like Gift of God, I finished that in a night. But with this one, I had to put it down, and I had to breathe off a little bit, and I had to come back, and I said, that's okay too. That's fine. So it was a little deeper, and the feedback
True.
reflected that. Yeah. Right.
I basically attempted to read all the books
Hmm.
before
Right.
this interview, but then I realized
Right.
you have to
That's a
take your
little, yeah.
time, read it, do a bit of reflection. You know, it's not something you can rush off. So I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, let's just go with it.
Right. Right.
And that's what I found with, you know, Gift of God also. You
Hmm.
have to take your time. So this wasn't something that, okay, let me read this to, so I can better understand where she's coming from, so we can have a better discussion. It's just something you'll have to say, okay, let's take a step back here. You can't go through this quickly.
Yeah.
And because you said, even though you're speaking about miscarriage and everything, the aspect of the various emotions that you went through, um, your relationship with God, talking to God, you know, it just covers a wide scope of life.
Mm.
So it not only, affected that area of your miscarriage, which in itself is a discussion.
Mm.
Because as you're pointing out, not a lot of people, that's not something we talk about.
Right.
All right. And you spoke about it. And I'm sure a lot of people are relieved. I hope that, more individuals will discuss this. I'm going to recommend this to a book, a book group that I know of, a book club
Okay.
that I know,
Thank
and I'm
you.
going to see what they think of it, because I am sure they'll be fascinated with this one. I'm sure it'll cause a healthy discussion.
I hope so. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay. So while you were writing Gift of God,
Mhm.
did you have a full concept of what you really wanted to share?
Absolutely not. The thing is, I had a vague idea. So, in terms of full concept, it wasn't that at all. It was a vague idea, and that, I think, is borne out in the fact that Gift of God took me roughly 4 years to write. I started it in 2012 because I felt that, okay, I'm sitting down on this story, because by that time, by 2012, we were past his last surgery, like several years past his last surgery. So the thing with that too is that Gift of God was written sort of in from a rear view mirror perspective. And so, I had a lot of things that I thought, okay, well, maybe I should take it from that angle or this angle. um but at the end of the day, we were sort of past it. And so
Right.
it was like looking back, and I wasn't quite sure. I just know I wanted to share his story, but in terms of what angle are we going to share it from, how much gets put in, how much gets taken out, and two, because it was a biography um autobiography in
Yeah.
addition to his story, because it's my first book, a lot of background went into it as well,
Yes.
where I was coming from, where my faith story was coming
Yeah.
from. So whereas at first I was like, okay, I'm just gonna tell his story. In when I started actually writing it, I several times I had to just stop and start over, scratch and start over, because I realized that God was sort of widening the scope. So it wasn't just about his story; it was about where I was coming from, entering into what happened with him, what my faith walk with God had looked like before, and how
Right.
this. So it couldn't just be how hearing that your infant son, chances are he's not going to live.
Right.
I realized that in order to sort of properly communicate how hearing that affected me as a woman of faith, I needed to talk a little bit about where my faith was coming from, what my relationship was with God would have looked like before that. And so I realized I had to go back deeper. And then in going deeper, I realized I had to go even deeper into some of the struggles that I may have had that I thought were struggles before I understood what struggles really were. And then, dealing with things like, a broken relationship and things not working out how you planned, and
Right.
how I was going to do all of that and also not, so to speak, hurt anybody in the process.
Yes.
And so it was writing it in itself was an experience, a faith experience for me. Learning to share something, even though you've been hurt, it doesn't give you the right to hurt anybody else. And so telling your story and just sticking to the facts and saying, how God helped me through this.
There's always a joy in reading from local authors,
Mhm.
especially when you can um, somehow identify with the locations and
Right,
whatnot. I
right,
personally, I giggled when you were describing your dad because I knew your dad from the time I was small.
right.
And so your description of him just had me laughing because I'm like, oh, that is so on point.
Yeah. You know him really. You do know him
Yes,
then.
that is so on point.
Right.
Yes. Now, you said Gift of God took about 4 years.
Mhm.
Were there any of the books that took a shorter period of time?
Yes, actually. We Still a No was literally written in the space of about a month.
Oh, wow.
About, yeah. I think too, because We Still a No, unlike the other two, were written from my
Sure.
comfort zone. Right, exactly. And it was written from my comfort zone. This was about, taking the word of God and sort of digging into it, taking a scripture, digging into it, and seeing how, even though this may have been written thousands of years ago, how is this applicable to me and my life today?
Right.
And so that is sort of my comfort zone, in the sense of, pretty much what I do just about every day, reading the word and, just asking the Lord, okay, how does this apply to me? Because this happened thousands of years ago. This lady, she lived in a situation where, she wasn't seen as very much. This is not my reality, but sort of digging a little deeper and saying, okay, well, how do I relate to that in 2020, or 2021,
Right.
and seeing how it's relevant. So that is sort of my comfort zone, because I do love doing that. And
Okay.
so Be Still and Know didn't take me very long. I think what made it easier too is that it's my first collaboration. So a couple of the devotionals were written by clergymen that I, have a deep respect and trust for. So that made it easier as well. So that didn't take very long.
My daughter actually glimpsed Be Still and Know last night and she said, where did you get this from? Because I think I
Mhm.
have it in my Amazon basket.
Oh dear. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So I
That's
said, well,
great.
this is the library's copy. So you need
Uh-huh.
to complete your purchase. And but I mean, she said yes because I think she saw a bit of it and liked it, and so she
Mhm.
decided to order it.
Okay. Well, thank her
Um,
for me, please.
I will, I will.
Thanks.
All right. Was it therapeutic as you wrote these books? Did it bring
Um,
emotions to the forefront, or what sort of emotions did you go through as you were doing these books? Well,
um,
particularly the first two.
right, right. The thing with the let me start with Gift of God. With Gift of God, it was, I don't know if so much therapeutic as there was a lot of revelation for me. And so in writing it, there were things that, I mean, I'm writing it and it sounds like I knew it long time, but sometimes literally as I'm typing, some of these things are like, oh Lord, that's what you were doing. So that is what that was for me. So I think the Lord used that as sort of a tool. Like, you think you understand this thing just because you're a couple of years past it? Like, you don't even know. What, come write this and let me show you something. And so that is what that, so Gift of God was like that for me. So it was, it has that a soft spot in my heart, not just because it's the first book, but because, you know, through writing it, the Lord just revealed certain things to me, like certain things about, you know, even my son's birthday and how that tied into scripture and what he was really doing. And, you know, even though, you know, I couldn't see because I was just so caught up in, Lord, fix the situation, fix the situation, fix it the way I want you to fix it, and not seeing all the little ways that his hand was on it because
Yeah,
I was just so caught up in what I wanted.
right.
And so, right, so looking back,
Are we stuck? Are we stuck? Yes.
hear me?
Yeah, okay,
You with me?
continue.
Okay, right. So
Yes, that's just
with
the
the,
beauty of our internet.
I'm saying, I'm saying, oh boy, yeah. So with the lemon tree now,
Yes.
um, it was extremely therapeutic. There were tears writing it because it was the thing with the lemon tree. Unlike when I said Gift of God, it was written from the rearview mirror. The lemon tree, I was still very much driving, and so it's in process. And so I'm sharing, and that's one of the things I mentioned in the book, because I'm very upfront and very honest about the process, about not wanting to write it, about putting it down for months and months because I
Mm,
just felt resentful that this is something that the Lord was asking me to do. And like, it not like I had, you know, like a testimony trophy, like, you
right.
know, I so, right. So I had to come through my own process of maturing. And so the lemon tree for me, having finished it, is a testament to what the Lord has been able to do with me in that process, in maturing me to the point where I am not comfortable about this. Right up to the very end, I'm not comfortable with this. This is really difficult. But he did something that was so interesting in terms of one of the feedback that I got. One lady called me, a church sister, and she said she was expressing her own experience, you know, in that regard. And she said, this must have been extremely difficult for you. And I said, yes, it was. And she said, something she said to me about having come to the end of it. And I realized that in writing it, there was a lot of healing that took place as well. In my own, you know, soul, in my own relationship with God, there was a lot of healing that took place. Because she said to me, she said, I don't think anybody would be able to do something like this if they have not come to a place of healing. And until she said it, I realized, you know, there's truth in that. So that was that for me.
Right. There's certain things that came out also in Lemon Tree where you pointed out that grief and gratitude can hold hands.
Yes. Yes.
That is so profound.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
I'm not sure how I don't think I ever really thought about it
Yeah, I
until I
hadn't
started to
either.
you.
Yeah, I hadn't either, and that is, I think, another an example of the maturation process that I was talking about.
Right,
You
right.
know, where you get to the point that, okay, I lost, and the beautiful thing about it is that it is, the topic is miscarriage, but it applies to so many other things.
Yes.
Because right now there are lots of people, Mrs. Christian, who are, you know, they're walking around, but we don't see and understand some of the things that they're carrying.
True.
Right now, anxiety is a big thing going on
Yes.
right now because of
True.
everything that's happening.
Yes.
And then also we have a situation where we don't really realize it because we don't think of it like that, but there is some grief going on as well. There's grieving where I think the number of us, because I know I went through that process and grieving, I was grieving in 2020 what I thought my 2020 was going to look like. And then, COVID came and
Oh
just
wow.
said, no, we're not going to do that. This is how
Yes.
it's going to look.
Well,
And so
yes.
anytime you have that situation where what your reality is not looking like the plan that you make, there has to be, even if it's brief, even if we don't recognize it as that, there has to be that process of grieving, of
Yes.
coming to the point where I have to let go of what I thought this was going to look like. I have to let go of, okay, I thought I was going to have this job until, whenever,
Mm,
but this situation came and our business didn't survive the pandemic.
true.
There is yes, I have to get up and move on, but sometimes we do that so quickly we don't allow ourselves the time to grieve and
Breathe.
say, I really regret not being able to do this particular
Yes.
thing. You know, with our students, with our teachers, with the education, our educators, with parents who, may have. I know one of the things we deal with in our family is we love traveling. And so every time, we pass by the airport, my son does this sigh, like, when are we going to go in a plane again? And you have to allow those conversations because that is
True.
also a part of that grieving process. Yeah, we're not going to do it this year. Up to literally last night, my husband was, having that conversation with me in the kitchen. Oh, I miss when, we were in this particular place and we would do this and do that. All of that also is the part of grieving. But the beautiful thing is that it is very possible to hold, just like you said, grief and gratitude. They
Yes.
can hold hands. We can say,
True.
this isn't what I had planned, but Lord, I'm thankful
Oh
that
yes.
I still have my family, that I
Yes.
still have life, that you have a plan, and that it may not look, and grieving the fact that your plan clearly is not my plan, but I am
True.
grateful that because I serve you, you
True.
have a plan, and I am looking forward to seeing what you're going to do because you're bigger than me and your
True.
love is bigger than I can imagine. And so that for me is what that looked like. We're learning that grief and gratitude could hold hands.
The I think it was in the devotional where I think you quoted Jeremiah 29:12 and 13. I'm not sure
Mm,
if that was it. But then, I so love verse 11 because it relates to what you're speaking about, that, he knows what he wants for us or what he has for us. And
yes.
it's for not for our calamity,
Mm,
right? But to give
that's
us an
right.
expected end. All right. So that when I read that, I'm like, but I love Jeremiah 29:11.
11. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. One of my favorite verses as well.
Woo.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
I know that okay, apart from the contents of your book and your writings,
Mm-hmm.
I know that the publishing process can be complex.
Mm.
But
Ooh.
your first one was published, right? Had a publisher,
Yes, we had a publisher for the first one, and
but the
there's
other two were self-published.
the other
Was
two were
it?
self-published. Yes,
Uh,
that was
yes.
not the original plan, but I tell you, boy, they God have a hand in every story.
Yes.
There's a story behind all of that. So yes, the first one we went with a traditional publisher. It was technically a traditional publisher, but they had a sort of self-publishing arm. But what would happen is that, we published under the name of the traditional publisher, but, you were able to make a lot of those decisions yourself. And so we thought that that was a decent way to go. It was a little bit more costly, but
Yes.
it was a decent way to go. I had planned to do the same thing with Lemon Tree, but because of the cultural background of the Lemon Tree, as well as my approach to the topic, understanding that it was so taboo, and with all of that being a part of the writing process, what I wanted to do with the Lemon Tree is I wanted to publish it with a Caribbean publisher.
Right.
So that was the initial plan, to go with a Caribbean publisher. We did our research. There was a Caribbean publisher in Barbados that we wanted to go with. I had seen some of her work. I thought, this seems decent. We'd made all those initial contacts. Everything was going fine. And then mayhem hit. She was dealing with some very serious issues. She had illness in her family,
Oh, wow.
to the point of death, and not just one, but several. And so that just wasn't working out. Everybody had good intentions, but it just wasn't happening. And so I remember just being in tears about it. I'm like, Lord, so what's going to happen? Am I going to stop? Am I going to start this whole process? Because that was a months long process.
Yes,
And I'm
I
saying, am
can.
I going to start this? Yeah, am I going to start this all over again? I don't want to do that. And I put it down. I was so frustrated. And then I was talking to a friend of mine, this young lady that I mentor in Jamaica, and she was, she asked me about self-publishing. I said, well, that's hard. And I didn't want to do it because it's hard. And I got just really tired of God asking me to do hard things and just keep throwing more hard things on top of the hard things that I was already doing. I'm like, so I'm already doing this thing. I don't want to do it. This is like letting go, all my private, secret situations and stories and all them private battles that nobody talks about. And on top of that, you're going to ask me to learn how to publish in a matter of, months. And but that's exactly what happened, because you know how it is. We kick and scream and carry on, and God is a beautiful parent. He doesn't
Oh, yes,
get
yes.
down to our level. He's just like, you're finished. So this is what we're going to do. It reminds me of the story with Elijah, where Elijah was in the desert and he was like, Lord, I just want to die. I'm the only one, and everybody else done thing. And the Lord was like, okay, you finished. Get up now and come. Let's get to work. So this is exactly what the experience was with me as well. So while I was finishing this, I was literally learning the entire process of self-publishing, learning how to do everything myself. And I think once I had done it, I realized I really, I like it. And so I just went with it, because that way I didn't have to, run through all of the processes. This person has to approve this, and it has to go through all of these other little, test checks and balances. And it number one, it's not as time consuming. Obviously, you do
Quite a
save
bit.
money as well,
Yes.
right? And it also sort of forces me to take responsibility for my
True.
work, to make sure that it is at the standard that it's supposed to be at, and not just leaving that to somebody else. And so it's not for everybody. I will say that much, but I find personally for me, it has been, certainly the learning curve was steep, but it has been it has been very rewarding, just personally for me, learning to take responsibility for my work, and to understand that at every stage, I am responsible for making sure that it's at the standard that I want it to be at.
Excellent.
Yeah.
We'd like to say hello to Miss Petra Williams.
Oh,
She's
hey.
sharing that the discussion is mentally probing, even without the benefit of having read the books. She said she read the devotional book, though,
Hmm.
so she has quite a bit of catching up to do.
Okay, thank you, Petra, and I hope you enjoy the others as well.
Yes, yes, I'm sure she will. Okay, so you spoke about the traditional publishing versus, self-publishing
Hmm.
and the other aspects of writing your books. If you were to encourage somebody's hearing us having this discussion and they wanted to embark upon writing a book, what
Hmm.
sort of advice would you give them?
Okay, I'm actually glad you asked that question, Mrs. Christian, because one of the I guess one of the things I hear very often is, I've always wanted to write, or I started to write and I didn't really take it anywhere.
True.
And this is for people just across all walks, across all genres, whether believers, non-believers, culture, whatever it is that your particular niche is. And I will say to people, all the time, something that, I sense the Lord saying to me one time, which is, you give yourself so devotedly and with such dedication, sometimes to things you don't even like. we are part of organizations. We are, yeah, and we get, tired of people and how they are and so on, but we give and we continue to do it. We will spend 8, 9, 10 hours putting into a job that we don't like all the time. Um, but if there is something that, he has laid on our heart to do, then we ought to at least give it the same type
Yes.
of dedication. And
Amen.
so that is one thing that he said to me more than once. I admit, more than once, to kind of remind me that there's, and this is the point I really want to make, that it may seem like a little thing to you, but one of the things that I'm realizing is there are really no little things, and you never know how the what you see as a little thing might impact somebody else. It doesn't
Uh,
have to be anything life changing, like you telling your story. It could be a particular thing that you just feel that you have this yearning on your heart to write about, whether
yes.
that is something about culture, whether it's about music, whether it's about your life story, or somebody else. It You never know how it can impact someone else. I have a friend who, she wants to write, she's a Christian, she wants to write Christian fiction. And she struggled for a little bit because she's like, it doesn't seem like anything. And I said to her, interesting that you say that, because I have, someone who during the pandemic was just, feeling very anxious and having a difficult time. And what I find has been a saving grace for her is she's borrowing books from your public library. So thank you very much.
Awesome.
And Christian fiction, and just going
Yes.
through them, going literally just, going through them like a knife through butter, and it's just really giving her such peace of mind, and and an ability to just take herself away from the harsh realities that we are dealing with, and the anxieties that can come from the news, and from this is happening and that is happening. And you never know, it may seem like a silly thing to you, but if it is that you have something to do, put your heart into it and get it done. And that might look like, because sometimes I do have one or two people who ask me, practically, what does that look like? Practically, that looks like setting a timetable and saying,
Yes.
okay, so every day I am going to write for 20 minutes, or I'm going to write for half an hour. Whether what you write seems like ignorance or not, there's a beautiful button called delete, and you can use that at some point in time, later on. Because chances are, I mean, nobody ever publishes your first draft anyway. It's going to look different as you go on, but you never know. So you keep at it and you keep writing. There are days when I'm writing and it just doesn't seem like anything sensible, but I made a promise, I'm going to keep at it. I'm going to keep at it. And 100% of the time, something has come out of it. And so I just really want to encourage, because I think from listening to those types of, that particular type of feedback, I get the impression that we could have a whole lot more local authors than we do.
Yes.
Like, there are potentially so many out there, so many. But we just, for some reason, we just don't seem to think, well, it's not that big a deal. It's a big deal for somebody. You never know how
Yes.
it's going to impact, and that's
True.
not really for us to say. It's for us to just do the thing that we feel called to do and let God work out the rest.
Yes. So I hope individuals are listening. So let's get with those books. Let's get with those projects and start writing.
Right. Yes, yes, indeed.
I have a question because throughout your books, I see some poems. I see a few poems.
Yes.
Are we gonna see a book of poems?
I
Is
am
that
not.
more difficult to do than other books?
I'll tell you, in a way, yes. I don't know if it's because maybe I'm a little more sensitive about my poetry. To be fair, I don't write poetry as much now as I used to, when I was in college and that sort of stuff. But I think I'm a little bit more sensitive about my poetry, because for me, poetry has always come out of a time of deep soul searching, I think,
Um,
maybe, and anguish. I've never thought about it until you said it. I'm not saying no. You never know. You never know. I'm not saying no. You never know. But I've never really thought about it. So anything is possible, though.
Yeah,
Anything is possible.
you never know. It could minister to a lot of individuals out there because the few
That's
that I
true.
read are very good. So, um,
And many writers too. So
all right. So I'm looking out for that.
okay. All right. Okay.
How do you market their books, though?
Usually, I use Facebook, I use social media, and I think that is probably the biggest marketing tool, these days.
Yes.
Social media, I use Facebook. I'm on Instagram as well, where I really, my Instagram author account, I really share snippets from the book, and I also sort of bring it home, to what might be going on now, right now in anybody's life, whether it relates to a relationship issue, whether it relates to um, something going on personally with some other type of relationship or a job or whatever. I try to relate what the snippets I take from my books, usually it's a quote or something, and I try to relate it to
Yes.
what might be going on currently. And so that I've gotten some good feedback from that as well. So basically, social media is how I do the marketing.
Okay, that's great.
Hmm.
I hope that our discussion motivated a lot of people to dust off their keyboard or whatever device that they have, and they'll really start working on some books. I'd like to see the literary arts in Antigua, really continue to grow. And like you
Right.
said, we have a lot of local authors, and
Hmm.
we really need to celebrate them, highlight their work because you know it's helpful to each other.
Right.
All right, we can help each other when we do that. Okay, so Mrs. Simon,
Yes,
I'm gonna say Turkessa. I think that's
yes.
my new favorite name right now. But
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you so much for just taking the time out and speaking with us. I see also you have a blog, so maybe if you get that link, we can also share it with others so that they can follow you. Would
Yes,
I
I
be all
do
right?
have. I do have a blog, and I'm glad you mentioned that actually, because it's actually one of the tools I used to sort of uh, I guess test the waters.
Okay.
And I would recommend that also to budding authors or to someone who you have something to write, you have something to share, but you're not really sure if you're comfortable putting yourself out there for people that you know. And a blog, I think, is a great place to sort of test the waters with people that you don't know. And so the feedback is not because, well, is your mommy, so she gonna tell you that it sound good, that kind of thing. It's people that you don't know and who are not invested
Right.
emotionally in you, and in whom also their response, you are not emotionally invested, and so it's easier to take real critique from somebody that you
Right.
don't know, you're not
Right.
related to. And I think that
Yeah.
sort of relationship has worked well for me. So I had the blog running for a couple of years before I published Gift of God, and I think it was very helpful. A couple of years or the same, around that same time, before I published Gift of God, and so it's very helpful. Um, it was very helpful to me. So I would recommend that as well to somebody who wants to write and share, but you're not so sure. Um, you're feeling a little bit nervous about it. So try it with people that you don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the question is being asked, and maybe you need to share the various social media avenues that you are on
Hmm.
so that individuals can follow you, get in touch with
No,
you.
sure, no problem. You can find me on Facebook. My author page is T. Larissa Simon, Larissa Lerisa. You can follow me there. I normally share my work. Sometimes I share snippets of things that I'm actually working on. So you can sort of get a sneak peek as to what might be coming up next. My regular Facebook page, you can reach out to me there as well, T West Simon. You can follow me on Instagram at T Larissa. I'm on Twitter as well, T Larissa Simon. And I'm not on Twitter that often, but I try. It's Twitter is also a good tool for helping you keep things brief, because that 40 character
Yes.
limit to say what you have to say and
Yes.
hush. So Twitter is an extremely good tool for me.
Oh, the beauty of our internet again.
Are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Right. Okay, good. So yeah, so Twitter is a very good practical, practice tool for somebody who
Yes.
might struggle with being long-winded. And I am also on the blog. It's T Larissa at WordPress. I think I'm
Okay.
on WordPress. You should be able to find me on
Yes.
WordPress.
Okay.
So you can follow me any of those places and reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer. I'm happy to help.
Awesome.
Yes. Oh my, you're stuck. Hello?
I'm
Hello.
also I'm also a
Oh,
pluviophile, so I think the weather is celebrating with us also. So
you notice. I was in the kitchen this morning when it started raining. I'm like, yes, Lord, because so many things went wrong this morning. It's not even funny,
yes.
just technologically speaking.
Oh my
So
goodness.
yeah, so when the rain came, I was like, yes, Lord, you're still here. You're still with me. That's good. We're good. We're gonna be all right. We're gonna be all right.
Okay. So we'd like to thank you again for just spending some time with us. And we really appreciate all that you've shared, not only through our discussion, but in your book. We need to let everybody know. Are your books also in the bookstores here?
They are, yes. You can find all three at the Best of Books,
Okay.
and you should be able to find all three. I'm not sure how many Gift of God copies are left, but you should be able to find them as well as at the Methodist Bookshop.
Okay.
So those two places you can find the books. I also have some copies. You can reach out to me at any of the social media places that I mentioned. You can send me a message, and I'm happy to try and get a book to you as well.
And we also have copies at the library. Thank you kindly for your donations.
You're most welcome. I have a special relationship with the library from
Yes.
childhood, so I
Yes.
am I am only too happy.
Yes. And I was able to quickly go and, you know,
Ah, yes, yes,
get
yes.
my Kindle version. So whatever
Right.
format we may want it in, they're
Hmm.
there. So we have no excuse. We need to continue to celebrate and support our authors.
Right.
And these three books are awesome. So I am highly recommending that we go out and have a purchase. Let's support our authors. Okay. We'll also put up this discussion on our YouTube channel. So it will
Hmm.
be there. Sometimes individuals at work, so they don't always get the time to readily sit down when we have our live. But then
Right.
as the days go along, you see the views, get more and more, and a lot of discussions take place. So
Right.
we'll ask you to look out for that. I see the request that yes, we will. We'll post the various social medias that you're on. We'll post it in our link also so that
Okay.
individuals can see it. So once
All
again,
right.
Mrs. Simon, we'd like to thank you for spending this time with us. It was really wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Christian, to you and to the public library. Thank you for this opportunity and this platform that you offer to local authors. I know that, we all appreciate it, and we are just so very grateful to have that kind of support,
True.
because it can be a lonely process sometimes, but we are
Yes.
grateful always to have that type of support and to know that you are behind us. So thank you. And thanks to your listeners, thanks to everybody who reached
Yes.
out, and to everybody who, you may be going through a little bit of something and you're feeling
True.
all alone. Just it's so important to know that you really aren't. There are so many of us. We look nice and we smile and we
We
pretty
smile
up,
a
and
lot.
so yes, we do. We've learned to do that. We've learned to do that, and that's exactly what I've covered in the lemon tree.
Yes.
That just breaking past that moment, not necessarily throwing all your business out there for everybody. I'm not
No.
recommending that if you're not in that
Right.
place,
Right.
but just to know that you are not alone. And there are, many of us out here who are, going through, but, still standing and continuing to trust and believe and pray for you as well, that you will continue to still stand and you're going to be all right. So I just wanted to share that. with your audience as well. And thank you again.
Well, thank you so much. And I'd like to join you in also thanking the online audience for being with us. And I hope that, we'll have this discussion again or similar discussion. Maybe it'll be your next project. You never know.
You never know. I will let you know for sure.
Right?
I will let you know for
So,
sure.
once again, dear, thank you for being with us. And we'd like to thank our online audience for being with us. So, until we meet again next month, I think we're having Miss Carl with us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just want everybody to continue to be safe and,
Right.
just continue to live one day at a time and give God all the glory
Amen.
for all He has brought
Amen.
us through. So, thank
Amen.
you and do have a blessed afternoon.
Thank you. Take
Okay.
care. Bye
Bye,
bye.
dear. All right.